Thank you for staying with us. Let's continue with our discussion of the night, and we're trying to take a look at how can we get men and boys to be part of the fight, just to be equal partners, to be stakeholders, to take ownership in the fight against ending violence against women and girls. And before we went on that very short break, Valentine, you were telling us about with women, we came to be helpers in the society, and sometimes men, you do not want to feel like women are taking your space. But I'll be coming back to that in a few. But my question was, do you really feel that this is a conversation that you want to have when you're now being put in places where you're told, you know, we need to be partners in ending violence against women and girls? Because the 16 days of activism against GBV, it focuses on women and girls, and we understand that men also go through GBV. But is this a conversation that you really want to have, Valentine?
Yeah, as for me, I can say yes. It is part of us. As I shall say it, women are part of our ribs, so we are part and parcel. And as long as nimekuambia tu, sisi ndio tumekuwa kama perpetrators. So ndio ishe, meza lazima ikuwe na kijana. Haina kitu kingine. Lazima kijana kama kwa meza ajue nini anafaa kudu kwa the scenario. Sijasema si tudhulumiwi. Kuna some scenario mona tunapigwa pasi and some stuff. And pia hii conversation inafaa kuwa tu only for boy, inafaa kuwa kila stakeholder inafaa kuwa on board. Inamaanisha the government, the non-governmental, Kenya Red Cross, each and every person inafaa kuvuta kamba to the end goal. And this thing now inakuja point ya goal ni kumaliza violence. Iwe ni ya kijinsia, iwe ni ya kidemi, iwe ni ya chali, iwe ni ya nani. Goal ni to stop the gender violence. Now this comes now, lazima tupate education, watu elimishwe. Lazima tujue kwa ground. Lazima pia wale kwa ground, we take things positive that, yeah, it is our battle. And pia tuweze kujua ni wapi we influence ya kutuchapia. So we have to get back to that scenario, then tujue, sisi kama vijana, role yetu ni gani. As long as tunajua role yetu, the female gender wanajua role yao, tunapatiana like unafaa kufika hapa, this is our limit, this is our limit, lakini ikisemekana anafaa kusaidia atakusaidia. Na usifeel like ana kushadow. Weka mwanaume feel madam amekuja kukusaidia, anataka kununua gari, ataki kuwa boss wa nyumba.
Interesting. Now, Charlene, what does effective engagement mean and look like to you?
Okay, effective engagement, I would say to me, looks like when the people we are targeting with these interventions are able to come out and, you know, and take part in the change that we are really looking to see. And maybe just allow me to elaborate a little bit about the Young Men Resilience Program. Please. So this Young Men Resilience Program is a program that is targeting young men in the informal settlements. And currently Kenya Red Cross, actually this is with partnership, we got funding from Danish Red Cross to implement this project. And this is after, when you look at informal settlements, you'll find, not even informal settlements, in any other setting, you'll find there are so many other initiatives and projects targeting the girl child. You're looking at, you talked about us combating the triple threat and all that. So when you're talking about ending GBV, ending new HIV infections, combating all that, and sexual and gender-based violence, and we are not addressing the people who we are said to be the perpetrators, because when you look at the statistics, it's showing us that men are actually the main perpetrators of gender-based violence. So bringing them to the table also helps address the issues. We want to understand where they're coming from. We want to understand their thinking. We want to understand what is this that is making them do what they do. And you're looking at, I would say, I don't want to call it toxic masculinity, right? But I would say what is defined to be a man, and if you look at it from from like way back up to now, masculinity is associated with being aggressive, is associated with aggression, is associated with violence. You know, we're telling our boys and men, you have to fight. You know, when somebody, so we're trying to redefine this and tell men, as much as masculinity is associated with all these things, it can also be associated with empathy, with respect, yeah, and bringing them to the table is actually part of addressing this solution. So effective strategies being put in place is them coming out as champions, as you can see these two men here, them talking about these issues openly and not, I know there's a lot of peer influence, your peers will look at you as weak, but even them being able to raise this awareness in the spaces where they have power, or in the spaces where they have audience. So that to me, and also looking at policies and laws that are being implemented in a way that will address these issues, then we can say we are headed there. We are headed in the right direction.
All right. Of course, we need to take on the violence that comes with masculinity in our communities. Our men are already exposed to, we see terms like, you have to fight that woman in order for her to respect you. And now, when we're talking about such matters, how do we now address them, Charlene?
All right, so, and that still brings me to the point of bringing men to the table. So when you look at some of the instances where we are, let's look at the empowerment of women. We want to empower the women to curb some of these issues. And one of the issues that we're really trying to curb actually is the economic bit of it. We are doing a lot of economic empowerment to women so they're able to stand on their feet and do things on their own, not be dependent on partners who are abusive to them. But now, I'll take an example. I take an initiative like that in Mathare. And we have these young women or young girls who are facing gender-based violence. I'm empowering them, I start a business for them, and I'm not engaging men as part of that discussion. So at the end of the day, you find I'm coming up with solutions, but they're detrimental still to that woman. The woman might be killed, or, you know, you see cases of this man took all my money, that Patia, you know, as a project. So we start from the beginning, engaging them from the beginning, at the planning phase, before we go to the implementation phase. We get to hear their views. What do you think would be, you know, like we do this, especially in our projects at Kenya Red Cross. We engage men, and we tell them, this is a project that is coming to this, this community. We are going to empower women. Do you think it will have any positive impact in your family as a whole? We try to make them understand why we are doing what we are doing. When they are on board, or they really buy into what we are trying to do, as much as empowering women is concerned, then we find very few cases of them being resistant. So them being engaged from the beginning of these discussions that we are having, and working with them through all these phases, then makes change very easy, or rather it bears fruits now. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, Peter Valentine mentioned a very interesting point to me, and he said, for this conversation, for women to feel safe, then men lazima wakue kwa your table. So is it that you actually want to be in the table, or you're being in the table because wacha tukae ishe? You know, because that is how I understood this point. Like, Nikama, let me just be the bigger person so that the issue can be done away with. But what do you think about that? Do you really want to be part of the conversation, Peter?
Actually, I will talk on the side of men.
Yes. I want you to talk as Peter.
Yes.
No, not for men.
I'm representing the men.
Exactly, yeah.
All right.
So, one thing, kuzaliwa ghetto makes you a number one suspect, ama informal settlement. So ndio upate this young man anakuja kuongea ama ku air out issue yake, inakuanga ni ngumu sana. Men are said to be so secretive. Ndio upate huyu mwanaume anaongea, lazima kue amekupatia ile trust, umempatia ile trust, nikikwambia kitu hauta nyamaza. So mwanaume kukuja on this table kudiscuss issue ya GBV, lazima kuwe na ile trust. Nikiongea haitafanyika. We men tunapigwa.
Na nani? Nani anawapiga?
Okay, tunapigwa kwa manyumba zetu, lakini hatuongei. Lakini inafika a point inabidi uongee. So ndio tunapatia ile chance ya kuongea, tunaenda kwa mabezi zao. Ndio upate mwanaume anakuambia shida yake, lazima umpate kwa ile comfort zone yake. So tunaenda kwa hizo mabezi zao kuleta hiyo conversation ya GBV. Wewe nini inaendelea? Nyumbani nini inaendelea? Nani ako affected most? So hapo ndio tunakuja tunapata solutions kwa hizi issues za GBV.
Amazing. Now, modeling men. I see you're laughing, Charlene, but I'll give you your time. Modeling men requires candid conversations. Now, I want to understand how you guys are approaching these conversations. How are you ensuring that you are not exposing them to a point where whatever you're telling these young men is perpetuating gender-based violence against women.
So kwangu mimi nasema venye tu mwenzangu amesema setup ni pako safe kwa vijana.
So what exactly are you telling these vijana?
So au vijana lazima tuonyeshe what the constitution inasema. The law about human rights. Lazima tuwashow. Tuonyeshe jo jela ni miaka ngapi. Si threat lakini the moment unafanya a sexual harassment, sijui umepigana na dem, sijui umemrape, mlikuwa geri, mkasema alijipa, mkafanya mambo yenu. Majajo, lazima tukwambie tu sheria jo na wewe ikunjwe. Especially sisi kutoka ghetto, mwanangu na mwenzangu sisi tukangatuka suspect. So sheria wewe ikunjwe kwetu. Yote inakuwa jo ina kunyorosha mzuri, asikia mzee miaka 21 kwa jela, uko na 20 years, piga 21 nyingine. Unasikia tena umeambiwa 40. Kwa kuja kudunini. Lazima tuambie tu ni aje. Ama dem lazima tuwalinde. So pia wataku challenge. Vale nao sisi nani tutetea. And this is the good thing why Mathare come. Na atuko kupointia ku struggle about who is the best and nani analindwa. But tunataka kuja kama na ile inclusivity thing whereby unapata sisi kama vijana tunajua wa roles. Tunajua udem hataki kuja akikwambia ABC ama hizo vitu anataka kuleta kwa nyumba, tena unamwambia ni agenda stand yangu, acha mambo mingi. Na hii stand ndio kuaffect na uwezi kutake the moment uko pale kwa ile base tumwambia, utapata kijana hata tupa ngumi. Ndio wanaweza jibishana kidogo lakini amwambia ni aje cheki hii ndio hivi ndio kuko. So at the end of the day unapata kwa conflict resolution aja take the negative aspect of conflict resolution. Aja tupa blow. Ajamua juu dem leo. Lazima atajua pia mimi ni chali kwa nyumba. Ama okay. Disenda kutoka hata nikuondokee kwanza utulie, tutakuja kubonga baadaye. Rather than ile masaa lazima just madem sasa lazima tutupe kawaida madem wote. Kidogo akichemuka ameenda 100. Sasa ameenda hiyo 100, the best thing tunaambia vijana kiona dem ameenda juu lazima ushuke.
Right.
Na hiyo kushuka kwako haimaanishi wewe ni mnyonge. Imaanisha umetumia brain sana. Avoid. One thing of conflict resolution ni kuavoid isi cascade kwa sorry unasikia panga ililia dem kidogo anakuja asubuhi hata hizi toa ile urembo alikuwa nayo. Ndio nini? Akona black eye. Ana meno amekuwa mapengo ameanza kujiweka machuma kwa meno ati masling. Kumbe usiku ni ngumi ilia. So kijana anaambiwa ni aje avoid kitu inaweza leta vita kwa nyumba. So avoidance is one of the aspect yenye pia tunapokuambia ni aje si lazima wa cry, si lazima a bleed, si lazima ushow wewe ndio ndume. Sometimes kutumia brain inamaliza mambo mingi sana kulikana na
Amazing, and that is also how we fight the toxic masculinity in our communities, if you guys do agree with me. Now, Charlene, we also have overload of information. It is everywhere. We have social media. But what other platforms can we really leverage to ensure that this information is being packaged well for it to land right?
Yeah, I really like that. As apart from this is one of the avenues you're doing, like advocacy to end this, and apart from it starting from an individual level, fighting gender-based violence, or rather ending it, is a multi-sectoral approach, or rather it requires so many other stakeholders. So I would point out the first is the church. So if you look at our Kenyan population, majority of our Kenyans are Christians. So, and if you look at it very well, during the political season, you are almost approaching to it, politicians will go and camp in church because they know there is a lot of influence from the church. I don't want to get political for that matter, but let me just go straight to the point. So I'm thinking, if we now engage the church in the fight against gender-based violence, where even not the church only, even the the religion, even the sheikh going to speaking against gender-based violence, the pastors, not encouraging, when they are doing marital counseling and it is gender-based violence, them not covering up for such issues, them speaking against it, them being part of the 16 days of activism, showing their commitment and stand against against gender-based violence. That's a very good platform to do that. Another platform is also at the schools. We say in gender-based violence programming that children who witness violence will either be perpetrators or survivors. So it starts from a very young age. When you tell them what gender-based violence is, what they can do to fight gender-based violence, the prevention, mitigation, and all those measures, when you start even from the schools and integrate gender-based violence into our curriculum, then that will be a win for us as a society. Another platform would also be having conversations at the community level. And one of the advantages we have as Kenya Red Cross, we are always there. Our presence is in all the 47 counties, and our projects and the programs are community-based. We want communities to come up with their own solutions, to do a retrospect of what are some of the ailing issues or the detrimental cultural norms that are ailing them as a community, and them coming up with those solutions. So engaging them at the community level, letting them take lead in the fight against gender-based violence, that is a win for us. Because once Kenya Red Cross exits that community or any other project exits, it's something we have left in them. It's something that they're still practicing and something that they're still doing. Yeah.
All right. Now, that also brings me to the point of Nairobi being on higher awareness and high access to GBV support services. And that, of course, is according to the KDHS.
Yes.
Now, are you spread across these? You mentioned Kenya Red Cross is spread across the 47 counties, but this program, the Young Men Resilience, is it only in Nairobi, in the informal settlements? Now that they are more aware of gender-based violence cases, are you also in Nyanza? Tuseme kwetu sahi ukienda pale seme, will I find such a program there?
Okay, so as I'd mentioned, the Young Men Resilience Project is a program that is being funded by the Danish Red Cross, and they have a scope. Of course, every program has a scope, and the scope is where they felt this issue is really pertinent and they wanted to address it, and that is why we are addressing it in Mathare, informal settlements, and in Mukuru. And hopefully, as the project also ends in 2025, we hope to get more funding to do it in other areas. And another important thing to mention is we work with the Nairobi City County government. So one of the ways of sustainability is us working with the county governments and the national governments, just letting them in what we are doing, so that when this project exists in 2025, they're still able to support these young men in their ventures and in the initiatives in ending gender-based violence. So one of the things we're also keen on, we are actually onboarded in the plus for Kenya. We have the men's sector, men inclusion, the technical working group for men. So in the GBV technical working group, there are very many other subsectors, but the new one is the male engagement, which is a plus, and these young men are also part of that platform. So we're also hoping the national government, being part of it now, is able to take, or rather pick up the lessons learned from us, from this project that we're implementing, and try and streamline it to all these other places in Kenya, the way you're talking about Seme, Coast, Wapi, everywhere. So it's a matter of them taking up the lessons learned. How did you do this? And we are more than willing to send these young men in all those areas to capacity build and mentor other champions who will speak up and address issues such as gender-based violence. Yes.
All right. Now, I'm very glad that we have men on set today to also give us their voice in this conversation that we're having. Now, Peter, do you think that the realities of a fatherless generation is also contributing to this spike in gender-based violence cases?
From my side, I will say it's a yes, since we don't have the father figures to direct us to the right path.
Valentine, do you agree with that? A fatherless generation, sasa tunaona kuna cases mingi za unasikia mtu anasema deadbeat. Of course, we know they're single moms. So would you say that a fatherless generation has led to the spike?
Fatherless generation, jo, ma deadbeats hawako na ina lead pia kwa history of violence. Nikisema hivyo pia hizi ama deadbeats wanakuja through different aspects mtaani. Yenye na feel gava inafaa come on board pia kusaidia the young men pale down. So unapata mapatia dem ball. Watu wawili una wera. Kama kijana mzee shouting inaanza pale kijani. Ukipiga hesabu mzee, kuna area Malindi mzee, unaweza ndo piga tu nini yako. Mbona mzee usidodge because unaona ukija tu kwa keja mzee dikeleo unakutana nayo. So unacheki mimi nasema government inafaa ku bring up different aspects za vijana wapate mboka. Kusema mboka ni job.
Right.
Tumejaribu kuicreate. Okay, sisi kataa. Tumejaribu kuicreate pia sisi iko down. Kuna vitu tunafanya art, tunacheza ball, kuna dancing crews inaendelea uko down. Lakini unapata kuna finance kubwa imewekwa tu kwa budget. Unapiga budget yao ukiona siku ya budget sijui ndio ilirudi. Najiuliza inarudiaje na ground hii pesa hajafika. Tunaona tu society kama Kenya Red Cross ina come on ground. Yet wanafaa kuwa wamepata more boost from the government whereby to implement hizi vitu vijana wapate job. The fatherless society haitakuwa because naweza provide, naweza provide. Wife atakuwa na furaha pale, anajua niko na mwanaume ana provide. Na vitu vingi unavyojangaza patani hii, hakuna chakula kwa nyumba. Wife ameanza kelele. Kidogo inabidi tukipia kwa drug and substance abuse, unajifanya ati hiyo ndio scapegoat, unajipeleka huko. But at the end of the day, let us venture into programs zenye zinaweza bring economic empowerment, especially kwa young men. Na jasema tu kwa vijana peke yake, hadi kwa madem. Kwa nini nasema hadi kwa madem? Dem akosado, wanake kule ni ana pia kakitu. Kuna possibility utapatana na kabazu hapo, ampige kani ngiri mbili, inakuwa ni form. Sasa demu inakuwa ni form kwa udem, mimi nikuja nijue mama wa kwangu ama mrembo wa kwangu bana, kuna venye anachezanga mambo yake na kabuda fulani. Mbona wewe scam? So anaweza sema tujaribu kuwa capacity build kama youths. Tujaribu kupatiwa. Sasa ina kuna kazi mtaani. Uizi kidogo imepungua because nini? Vijana wako wera. Sasa gava ianga kuangalia kwa culture, kuna culture and art, kuna mambo na waste management programs, kuna environmental, najua kuna rivers commission on board. So tunaomba au madem wakuja on board, au vijana wakuja on board, umepata ajira, elimu izidi kuingia kwao, vita yatoka wapi kwa nyumba. Kama umeshiba, mimi najuanga kama uko njaa huwezi pigana, lakini kama umeshiba furaha iko kwa nyumba.
All right, just hold on to that point, and time is really running. But Charlene, what are the challenges when it comes to engaging men and boys in pushing and ending the fight against gender-based violence? What is holding men back?
So I would say one, and I'd mentioned it before, the stigma that comes with it. Your peers looking at you as weak. You know, masculinity has been labeled as, you know, the aggression bit of it. They are not, they are not put down, they are not told what to do. So that stigma or that comes with it for them being labeled as weak because they're championing for this cause is one of the reasons. Another reason is also the lack of funds and also initiatives that is bringing men on board, or rather capacity building men to be able to come out and be champions. Capacity building, I mean making them understand what gender-based violence is, how do they come in to address these situations. So you find like in Kenya, I'm sure they're very, very, we can actually pinpoint them. We are in this same working space with them. They're very few as compared to other initiatives that are addressing issues of the girl child. So apart from the funds and the stigma that comes with it, those are actually the main ones I would say that is making men shy to be part of that agenda.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much, Charlene, for your views. And Peter, just as we wind up, send a message to the men and boys watching tonight who are listening. How can they get involved in this fight and even further onboarding other men in this conversation?
My parting shot to the men outside there is to tell them to amplify the voices of the voiceless. We have voiceless men maybe in the community, but if we have the knowledge, if we have the information, let's amplify, let other men know that GBV is a disaster and it's a crime. And we have a lot of groups, working groups in the community. Let's use these groups to pass information to the men and the women outside there.
Valentine, what would you say to the men and young boys watching you tonight?
Ni si lazima wa bleed ndio to live.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. And for you who is watching tonight, the numbers are very worrying. This vice is not ending as at now. So I think it's just a collective action for us to also coming in the fight against gender-based violence. And just to read one comment that we have coming in here, Alex from Utawala says, the favoritism of women in workplaces and access to opportunities is also contributing to men feeling resentment. When there's a job opportunity, I used to show up and I'd see women being favored despite me having better qualifications. I saw that many times till I stopped bothering and decided to do business. Because if it's men who are hiring, they look at the skirt and beauty of women. If it's women hiring, they will also prefer to hire women. I hope you're listening. And he says, we are raising empowered women to be married by who? The disempowered man. Another thing, there's a lack of mentors for the boy child. Deadbeat culture also hurts men because they have no father figures in their lives. So that are very strong points right there. That should be a parting shot. Charlene, what do you have to say about that?
Yes. So I would say, just to reiterate to a comment that has been made there, we are raising empowered women to be married by who?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we really need to bring men into this conversation. We really need to make them part and parcel of ending gender-based violence. And the only way of doing that is engaging them and empowering them to live with that empowered woman as well. And also, I would just want to say also, ending GBV is a collective responsibility for each and every one of us. It starts with you, your reflections, you know, your habits, your cultures, what is informing what you do. So at the end of the day, it starts with you. So even you witnessing violence and saying nothing about it, you hearing your neighbor being hit and saying nothing about it also makes you part of that vice. So let us speak up, and to survivors of gender-based violence, we see you, we hear you, and we believe you.
Correct. We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Thank you so much for watching To The Point and for watching TV47 Weekend Edition in general. Thank you so much, Peter Mwaniki, Charlene Nasimiyu, and Valentine Onyango for gracing the show tonight. That's a wrap, and thank you so much for watching. My name is Anne Odida, and see you next time, inshallah.